Welcome! Today I want to show you behind the scenes a screen share of how I format my children's picture books, getting ready to upload and market on KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. I want to show you the software that I use and all of the steps involved, keeping in mind that there's about a zillion ways to format a kid's picture book and a lot of different softwares to choose from. This is my personal process and preference for right now, this season in my children's picture book creation. I use 4 main steps and softwares, starting with Procreate on the iPad, a transfer through Google Drive, and then I use Adobe Photoshop for final tweaking of all the files. And then I use Adobe InDesign to do the final layout and export as a PDF that's all ready for KDP. I typically create all of my illustrations for children's picture books in Procreate on the iPad and place placeholder text there in those files. Once I feel like the file itself is ready to export and put on a bigger screen on my desktop monitor, I will then use Google Drive to make the transfer because my desktop is Windows, not Apple, so I can't do the nice little AirDrop thing. So I export from Procreate on the iPad into Google Drive a PSD file, which is a Photoshop file, and it will leave all of the layers remaining so that I can view those layers in Adobe Photoshop. I export as a PSD into a file that's really easy to find there in my Google Drive. And when the exports are done, and here's a little tip, I just do a few at a time just so that it goes a little quicker and I know what I'm managing on the other side. Okay, so you see here this very first file. We're going to download the R. It's a big file. And while that's downloading, I'm also going to work on downloading the Q, and we'll download that. Now, once they're downloaded, they're going to show up into my download folder. I'll download the files. They'll be in my download folder, and immediately I open them in Adobe Photoshop. In Photoshop, I can see all of the layers and I'm able to do some final tweaks when I see everything on the big monitor. You can see here on the right-hand side that all of the layers I created in Procreate are there. Some of them are not named what I had them named over in Procreate, which is unfortunate, but I can still tell what's going on, so it's okay. I have a sketched little template that I used when I was creating all the illustrations. So I'm going to turn that little template on. It's usually on my very top layer. And then I'm going to click on the font, the text that's here, which this font did not save from what I had over in Procreate. So when I click on it, it says that it needs to be replaced. I choose replace, but now what I'm going to actually do is replace it with Comic Sans, which is the font that I want to use. It has the proper licensing, and also the reason I like it is that the A's are exactly how a teacher would teach a child how to print the letter A. And that's what I like when kids are reading my books. And so I'm choosing 30 points for the font and text sizing. And then I'm going to select that just like so, just select that font, and I'm bringing it down to where it just touches the sketched outline that I gave it in the template. And that tells me that on every page consistently, my font and text will be in exactly the same placement. So it's exactly the same size and it's exactly the same placement. Then when I'm happy with that page, I will do 2 saves. I save it again as a PSD file on my desktop computer so that it's there on that hard drive. And then I also export a JPEG out of Photoshop into that same file folder so that I have quick, easy access to that JPEG image later when I'm working in InDesign. I chose InDesign because I pretty much use Adobe everything, But a lot of picture book creators will use other platforms such as Canva, and even KDP offers some layout options. In InDesign, I use a template. I've saved myself templates in the sizes and the ratios that I most use as a picture book creator. I save the templates and I can open it up and re-save it, rename it into the book file that I'm currently working in. Once I've got it renamed, I then begin to import, which in InDesign, I use the place function. So I go to File, Place, and I look up my illustration that belongs on that page. And then I place it on the page that it belongs, just like so. And I actually see that I made it a little big. There we go. And I will continue loading in all of my pages just like that. There is one quick thing that I do want to point out. Sometimes I add the text in InDesign so that I have control of the text in that particular program, particularly when I'm getting a book translated into other languages, or I know that there'll be some editing that needs to happen later on. I don't want to go back into Photoshop to change the text, to export, to re-import the image, if that wasn't too confusing. But this particular book that I've shown you here today, I did do all the text in Photoshop, and the image that is imported into InDesign has the text in that image. So if I do need to change anything, I'm going back to Photoshop. I think every picture book creator is going to need to find out what way of formatting is best for you. And sometimes that can be a little bit frustrating at the beginning, like when you're on your first 1 or 2 books and you're trying out all the softwares and the workflow. But once you get the rhythm and the hang of it, you can create a system that works for you. This particular system that I'm showing you here today has a great flow for me because I illustrate in Procreate and I use Adobe software. And using Google Drive and opening onto my desktop is just that perfect segue that allows me control, and I'm able to see my images better and do the final tweaks in a way that works for me. Hopefully this video has given you some ideas and inspired some of your own workflow. I'd love to hear in the comments below what software you love, what's working for you in formatting your picture books. Let's get this conversation started, picture book creators. I believe in you. This channel is here for you. Check out all my links to see my offerings, classes, mentorship, and so much more in the picture book creators community. Until next time, picture book creators, remember, your story matters, and it's important to get it out there into the world.